almost exactly 13 years ago, Chelsea and I started a photography business together. And I think a lot about all the things that led us from trying to make stock pictures and usually failing to being here with you now and having a job and a career that allows us to do what we love and teach people and help people at the same time. So here's a story from those early days. We submitted photos to iStock, a stock agency that could have made us a bunch of money, and they just flat out rejected those photos. They just said, they're not sharp enough. You need to be using professional gear. And I thought I was using professional gear because at the time I had the Canon 5D and I had the 24 to 105 f4 L glass, but it had that red ring around the front. And I thought that meant it was pro glass, but apparently the editors at iStock thought otherwise. And when I started testing lenses later, I would realize, yeah, indeed, that wasn't great glass. So I researched it and figured out, oh, we need to get the holy trinity, right? The 24 to 70 f2.8L, the 70 to 200 f2.8L. But then I looked at the prices and we could not do them. So it was a non-starter. We would just have to find different careers. And if that had been my only option, I literally would not be here with you now. But I did find another option. I found third-party professional f2.8 super sharp glass from Tamron and Sigma. And I put them on my 5D. And then I put them on my 5D Mark II, and then my 5D Mark III when I upgraded, and then my 5DSR. And that third-party glass got our stock photos accepted. It was key to launching our careers on YouTube and writing stunning digital photography and all the photography that we did. Having third-party high-quality lenses at a price point we could afford at the time, I do believe I owe my career to that. So that's why I'm extremely troubled by some recent news. I see DP Review saying a third-party lens company, Viltrox, pulled all their Canon RF lenses from their website abruptly. And somebody contacted them, and this is what they said. We've been told by Canon to stop selling all RF mount products, so we will not release RF-related information on the official website. And it turns out about a year ago, Samyang, another popular third-party manufacturer, was forced to do the same thing, it seems like anyway. And Canon isn't making any official statement on it. So we don't really have any insight into what's happening from their side. And of course, in the lack of information, the best we can do is kind of speculate. So I don't know, but here's my best guess as to what's happening. When Canon made their full-frame RF mount, they probably patented some aspects of the physical design or the communications protocols. And if some third party makes a lens that uses that, it's probably a violation of that patent. And then Canon can send their lawyers after them. Canon has like so many patents, right? So Canon has the ability to stop third party lenses from being developed for the F mount by using their legal team. I think it's so bad for the millions of people who've already adopted the Canon RF mount system. And in fact, it makes me second guess some of my recommendations because while there hadn't been third-party lenses for Canon RF up to this point, I assumed they were coming really soon since the mount is so young. The third-party lenses have been so key to the development of Sony E-mount as a platform. You know, when Sony started E-mount, they were in sixth place. They were behind Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Panasonic, Olympus, Pentax. They were behind Pentax. And Sony openly embraced third parties for their E-mount. They said, here's how you communicate. If you want to make some lenses, great. Because you know why? Because Sony didn't have many lenses at all, and the lenses they had weren't great. They didn't have a lot of lens making expertise at the time. And if you go back and you watch our early Sony reviews, sometimes we liked the camera, but we frequently recommended you pick up a Canon or Nikon DSLR at the time simply because of the lens availability, because that's how important lenses are. But now we're in a different position. Since end of 2018, Canon and Nikon have moved to putting all their energy into mirrorless platforms where they don't have really many mirrorless lenses at all. But now Sony has this massive supply of lenses, including a lot of inexpensive third-party lenses. Here's a Samyang lens. They have a series of ultra-compact little travel lenses. I'll slap these onto my Sony A1 and I have a compact walking around lens, and then I can just change lenses and I have a wildlife or sports monster. It's really nice to have that versatility, and it makes the entire platform so much more appealing. But there are also people like me and Chelsea were 13 years ago who are trying to start a business, trying to build a life for themselves in photography, in the art that they love, but they need professional glass, but they don't have the budget for the name brand stuff. So they pick up something like this Tamron 70 to 180, and it works fantastically. Now, is it as good as the more expensive GM glass? I mean, you probably wouldn't notice a difference, right? Maybe it's not quite as good. There are advantages to getting name brand glass. But the fact of the matter is, of those photographers that I've known personally who've started from nothing and built up professional careers, basically 100% of them ended up relying on third party glass to bridge the gap while they were building their career, even if they later switched to name brand glass. And Canon has taken that away. Now, why would Canon do that? Well, maybe it actually makes business sense for Canon. Canon has been the number one camera manufacturer since like the 80s. And you see that we're number one mentality all the time, because when you're number one, you can be your biggest competitor. Canon, for example, has limited the video recording length on so many of their cameras over time to 30 minutes. Even after all the tax rules in Europe disappeared, they still limited it. Why? Because they wanted to prevent the cannibalization of their cinema cameras. They were competing against themselves. Now, meanwhile, you had Sony, Panasonic, smaller players at the time who didn't implement those limitations because, after all, they wanted to steal that business from Canon. But Canon, competing against themselves, just wanted you to spend more. And I think that's probably the biggest part of what's happening. Canon doesn't want third parties to compete with their own native RF mount lenses. And they know somebody goes into Best Buy and they pick up a Canon R10, they're not going to be sizing up the lenses that they need for the next decade. They're just going to grab the brand that they know. And now they're basically locked into that system. And unless they want to sell all their gear and switch brands. So I get it. I bet Canon has done the math. They've sized up the market and they've determined it's going to be more profitable for them to block out third parties and only have Canon lenses in the Canon RF mount, unless you end up using like an EF adapter and then putting on an old DSLR lens. But as time goes on, those DSLR lenses will get older and older. They're not getting updated. Any new releases are going to be for mirrorless. But while it's profitable for Canon, is it good for Canon buyers? No, it's definitely bad for the Canon consumers, especially because there won't be that sort of competition. Like I do see Sony with their new lens releases, they're directly comparing them to the third parties and taking on those existing segments. And that is good. That is driving them to outperform the third parties. There's competition within a single lens mount, and that has made Sony better, and Canon will not have that same influencing factor. And I really think that's too bad. Well, I know this will hurt Canon consumers, and I'm sure it will make Canon money. It does shift how we make some of our recommendations, because we don't just think about which body is the best, nor which body and lenses currently exist that are best. I actually think like 5-10 years into the future, about the lifetime of a lens mount, people stay loyal to a brand for decades or even generations. My first camera was a Canon Elan 2E, probably partly because my grandfather had a Canon AE1. And so the camera body you choose defines what you're going to be spending thousands of dollars of lenses on decades from now, or maybe even what your children or grandchildren will be spending their money. I don't know what to do about it. I don't have control over this. Like, I can put my opinion out there and I can hope someone at Canon listens, but it's not like Canon is going to come back and say, well, no, we're going to fully support third-party lenses. It's just we had an issue with how these particularly were implemented, but in the future we expect Tamron. I don't expect an answer from them, but maybe. I got an answer from them. Thank you for getting back to me, Canon. I'll read the answer to you now. Viltrox manufactures autofocus lenses for Canon's RF mount. Canon has found that these products infringe upon its patent rights and utility models, and in accordance has sent a written warning to the company to cease all actions that infringe on Canon's intellectual property rights, which is basically what I guessed on this video that I recorded over the long weekend. So this doesn't really answer our question because we don't know whether this is going to apply to Tamron and Sigma and prevent us from getting third-party lenses in the future. And the Canon rep that I clarified this with is also trying to find that. So there is hope. The answer is still an I don't know. But as long as I'm interrupting this video, I want to read feedback from people responding to this statement from Canon. These are comments from canonrumors.com. Enterman says, Canon has spent a vast amount of money developing RF cameras and RF lenses, and in my opinion, they have absolutely every right to stop third parties from cashing in. If you don't want to buy genuine Canon RF lenses, why not just use Canon or third-party EF glass via the EF to RF adapter? I have a good answer for that. We just reviewed the Sigma 20mm f1.4 wide-angle superfast prime, really ideal for Milky Way photography. Sigma makes this lens for Canon DSLR. They also make it for mirrorless mounts like Sony, but not for the Canon RF mount. I think we know why now, right? The mirrorless version of this lens is 42% lighter and at 1.6 inches shorter. That is why everybody switched their mounts to mirrorless, right? The shorter flange distance allows for more flexible, especially super wide angle, fast prime designs. And the mirrorless lens is going to be higher quality too, because the design is simpler, because you don't have to channel this super wide angle light through a fairly small DSLR opening with a large flange distance. That is why every company devoted hundreds of millions of dollars into switching their mount. So that's why you don't necessarily want to go back and just adapt EF lenses. Here's another comment from Canon Rumors. BC says, working pro in the field. I have a blend of Canon and third-party lenses. If I don't at least have that choice, my next camera won't be a Canon. So there you see people taking a real stance here, because third-party lenses have meant a lot to us. It has been a deal breaker for not all of us, but many of us. Here's a comment from Avenger 2.0. Guess people that buy expensive cameras today will do some research beforehand. If they can't afford the RF lenses, they will just go to Sony, Nikon, etc., where third-party lenses are available. So Canon might be sacrificing market share in the long run and still go bankrupt. I don't think this is going to result in Canon's bankruptcy, even though that would make a great clickbait title. I also don't think people who buy expensive cameras are actually going to think forward and research the entire lens lineup. So I don't agree with that part, but I also don't agree with the idea that if you're buying third-party lenses simply because you can't afford Canon RF lenses, sometimes it's about availability. Like that Sigma 20mm f1.4 I mentioned, Canon does not make a version of that, period. Not for EF, not for RF. Third-party manufacturers often corner a niche market that many photographers like astrophotographers absolutely need. Skyscraper fan says, Canon really needs to clear that up, because otherwise many photographers, including me, will be hesitant to invest $6,000 into an RF body. It is very annoying when Tamron or Sigma announce new lenses for Nikon and Sony mirrorless cameras, but not for Canon. Yeah, I totally agree. It's very frustrating when some new cool lens comes out that will allow you to get an extra stop of light for Milky Way photography, and you can't utilize that, right? Okay, back to your originally scheduled video. But maybe if they hear our feelings, all of our feelings, we can steer the direction of this. So, Canon is actually required to watch videos like this. They're required to. And they'll have to look through the comments, and they'll have to assess that and pass it up. So in the comments, write your thoughts about whether Canon should support third-party lenses, or tell us what third-party lenses have meant to you. And then go to social media and contact Canon directly. I don't have to be a part of it. Go to Twitter, go to Instagram, and tell them what you think. That's it. Bye.